Betting it's time for a bite to eat. Here's your look at the new Mattel Master Universe Origins. Mosquitor, evil energy draining insectoid. Mosquitor drains his victims of their life force, feeding his own power. Perhaps, just before we get a closer look at Mosquitor, let's bring in some other figures for comparisons. Even though Mosquitor looks like he's utilizing brand new mold elements, he's still going to be of the same proportions to the other Master Universe Origins figures. For comparisons, as he was certainly featured on the back of the packaging, getting his life force sucked out of him, let's bring in Fisto. Probably going to bring Fisto back anyways later on. We're also bringing maybe Battle Armor He-Man. Let's bring in Skeletor. Who else can we bring in? How about Scareglow? It's another haunting-related character. Good for Halloween, displaying Mosquitor and Scareglow. And maybe we can also bring in Ninjor. Again, even though Mosquitor is using brand new molds, his arms, his legs, and of course his torso with that blood internal chamber are all brand new parts for the Master Universe Origins figures. You can still see he scales in really well with the rest of the figures from this line. Let us check the stuff that comes packed along with the figure. Starting first, Mosquitor gets himself a comic book, which as you can see in this case, the cover has him featured center stage, or slightly off-centered stage, lurking in the dark shadows, either being pursued or about to ambush He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela. The name of this comic, by the way, is Horde Plague. Fitting enough. And actually, the neat thing about the comic is being that I ordered this online, they sent over the North American release, which means there's actually word boxes inside telling us exactly what's going on where I don't have to use my imagination. Based on what I'm reading down below, Master, I return with more Eternian life energy. Apparently, Mosquitor's job is to bring back life force and pump this into the chamber before resurrecting Hordak, which as you can see is on the other side. Foolish, Teela, screaming, say goodbye, Hordak. You should know that you can't bring a stick to a buzzsaw fight, as he clearly disarms Teela quickly with one of his shooting out buzzsaw blades. I love the artwork on the inside of this comic. And then featured, certainly on the back of the comic, advertisements. Is that how that's how they do it? Yes, that's how they do it. Advertising continued more toys that you can actually pick up from the Master Universe Origins line. There's Battle Armor He-Man, Battle Armor Skeletor, Buzzsaw Hordak, Castle Grayskull, and Wind Raider. Let me let you in on a secret. Don't tell anybody. I've actually had a look at all of these on this channel. So please and thank you, if you haven't had a chance to check out those videos, give them a gander, maybe after the review of Mosquitor. Shameless plug. Let's move back to the side. Moving then on to all the accessories that come packaged along with Mosquitor, when we start first with his Mosquitor Blaster. That's not really the name of it, that's just the name I've decided to give it. It actually is more based on the vintage Mosquitor, which actually had a gun that looked similar to this, which sort of has that needle nose end to it. It's all molded here in a purple plastic, but it's a very nice looking blaster. It can fit into only one of his hand right now, this hand over here. While you can't fit it into this hand, clearly, as you can see, there's no hole on this side just yet, but we can, for the time being, slide it into this hand here. For some reason or another, they've decided to give you an extra hand. I guess that's if you wanted to have both opportunities available for him to wielding the blaster. Just go ahead and wiggle the hand and remove it from the socket. It helps a bit to actually twist that off, and then go ahead and replace it now with the other gripping hand. Again, I really don't understand why they had to include two gripping hands. It seems just more some additional plastic that really wasn't needed to be molded in the first place. So yeah, you can either have the blaster on this side, or traveling across the stream to the other side of the village, you can actually put it on this side as well. The other thing that comes packaged along with the figure, before we get to his alternate head sculpt, is this. It's sort of a oozing, life force draining energy construct that basically goes onto the very end of his needle nose mask. Now, the thing about it, though, is while it does fit onto his mask with a very tight force, you have to apply a fair bit of pressure. One of the big problems with it, as you put the figure down, I'm going to just let go of it for a second, and you'll see what happens here. It drops way far down. It's not going to be good to anybody. The only way to kind of work around that to move the alternate head sculpt out of the way first. Let's bring back in Fisto, because after all, he was featured on the back of the packaging. All you have to do is if you line things up, you can kind of see this is going to fit around. Well, you kind of already know. You guys are all smart viewers. You know how this is going to work. This basically just latches around the front of a torso of one of the masters. And you can have it looking as if Mosquitor is draining the energy from Fisto. It looks neat enough, but it's not something that holds well on its own. I guess the really intended plan is you're really not going to have this sticking out from his nose anyways without it being latched onto a character. And it being soft enough plastic, it fits pretty good actually around the torso of whatever master you want to go with, even one that has a slightly more thicker armor like Fisto. If I could offer up any bit of critiquing here, though, while I like the fact that this is included, it would have been nice if it was a different color than his mask or his helmet that he wears. And why I say that is because it just looks like a continuation of the same red. If they had made that a lighter color, or even like in the comic, made it more closer to being that green color, I think it would have worked a little bit more better, I think, as opposed to just having one continue. It kind of looks like he's latching out a big giant tongue. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and detach that from Fisto. Be on your merry little way, Fisto, before he decides he wants more life force. And then go ahead and we just remove that from the end of his nose. I did notice, though, like the head is generally quite loose. You can see how much of a cavity is on the inside of the head sculpt here. So it really doesn't have much to hold on to when it comes to the head sculpt sitting in place. So like I said, taking it out of the packaging immediately, it was already loose to start off with. He does come with a secondary head, though. I'll bring it in right now. It looks less, to be honest, like a mosquito and looks more like an octopus. You can see that this is, I'm guessing, what it looks like with the helmet removed, and this is sort of his regular mosquito head. To take off and remove the head, you're just going to go ahead and take the top, of course, remove it from the ball peg, and then fit the new one in, and just wiggle it onto the ball peg. There we go. Nice, satisfying snap. And to show you the difference again between the two. For me, honestly, if I can offer up my own little opinion for a second, I think it's just a waste of plastic. Sure, it's nice to get an alternate head sculpt for Mosquito, but I think that most people, when it comes to Mosquitor, will likely display him like this. I don't want to make that assumption for everybody, but I'm kind of basing it from my own experience. I feel like I would never really want to display him with this. I mean, it looks like a pretty interesting enough looking head sculpt. But for me, if this line is based on the original classic toy line, I'm more inclined to display Mosquitor looking like this than I am displaying him like this. And I feel like the figure easily could have been released as a basic figure as opposed to releasing him as a deluxe. Yes, it means you're not going to be getting this, but would you display Mosquitor with that anyways? One last look, get a good gander at Octopus Face. His name really is an Octopus Face. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and just remove that back off. No, really, my favorite of the two is going to stick with the original head sculpt, which is this one right here. Now, I mentioned earlier in this review, long time ago, because I think we were talking more about lashings out of energy here and talking about his comic. But like this is, like Mosquitor here is utilizing a lot of brand new mold elements. To be fair, though, Mosquitor from the original vintage line would have been near the end of the Masters line, so they would have brought in a different molds and not really used those molds later on for other figures. Yes, you can clearly see there's the button activation on the back to play then into the gimmick then the front of the figure, but we'll look at that in a second. Again, I really like the coloring on him. They haven't really changed too much from the original vintage toy, right down to his very boxy looking robot boots. Those are still there from the original toy as well. Of course, what benefits this new Mosquitor is the fact he's going to have much more improved articulation in the elbows and knees and things that the original toy never really had. Speaking of articulation, I'll get this right out of the way right now. One of the legs is a little loose on my figure. Actually, really, to be fair, both the legs a little loose on this figure, which is a little disappointing. Okay, so let's talk about the gimmick, because I know you guys would want to get to seeing that right away. You can see there's these 3 holes on the front, and of course there's a clear screen across the cover, and you can see that inside there's a red liquid. The red liquid moves on its own, so really you don't need to press the button at all if you want to just have a swaying, rocking back and forth look. But to press the button on the back is really the thing that activates the function, the gimmick, same like the original vintage toy. Just press the button on the back, and what it does, as you can see, it starts dripping down the blood. You can do this multiple times to fill up the chamber. And at one point, I even had it quite high, actually, and then it sort of starts to drain itself again until you pump the blood all the way in. It looks like it's a pretty thick-looking liquid, and it's a nice dark red color. Of course, you would want to have it for being a dark red color. If this is life force, after all, it's really looking only more like blood than anything else. I really like, again, that they managed to put that in as a gimmick, and not just something like a sticker or just kind of the indication that a liquid would be able to pump inside. No, they actually did go the extra mile and made it as something that you would be able to see, something you'd be able to do by pressing the button on the back. For the figure's articulation, the head is, of course, already on that ball joint we looked at earlier, but because there's so much clearance going here, it really allows you to be able to rotate the head all the way around, up, down, and back and forth. Just wish it wasn't as loose as it is. As for the shoulders, then the shoulders can hinge out. Not quite at a full 90-degree angle bend, but just a little less than that. You can rotate, of course, the arms all the way around. They are a little on the tighter side. And again, rotate those all the way around. You can bend at the elbow. You can also rotate the forearm, and you can rotate the hand. Yes, even the hand that I changed over here on this side. As for the waist, it's only straight to a swivel. The legs, however, hinge out. You can see there's ball joints on the inside there. Forward and back on the legs. Single hinge on the knee, which also allows the lower leg to rotate. Again, I'm really disappointed that it's so loose already taking out of the packaging. Wonder if there's a way I could tighten up the joints. And then when it comes to his very large boxy feet, not only does he have the hinge back and forth this way, but you can also rock the feet back and forth this way as well. And yes, in case you're curious, there is peg holes on the undersides of Mosquitor's feet. Again, I really like the fact that they kept the classic design of Mosquitor, even down to his boxy-looking boots, which, again, as you can see closer, does have the marbling that usually comes along with using silver and gold plastic. The underoos don't have so much that issue because they're painted in, but they're using clearly silver plastic here for the boots. And yes, if you did want to mix and match these, you could really take off the limbs and even the head sculpt from Mosquitor. You can swap it out with another figure. Let's just get his feet straightened up here. A great looking figure. Again, like the fact that they took the original vintage design really has been across the board. The same formula for the new Masters of the Universe Origins figures. They take the original core design of what those vintage figures looked like back in the 80s and basically just brought that same design to the forefront for modernizing the figure and simply just changed the articulation on them. I honestly, again, don't feel like this was necessary. Maybe if I decide to get down the road, because, man, I had to order this guy online, if maybe he becomes a little bit more circulated and a lot more of a peg warmer like Ram Man is and Clamp Champ, two peg warmers here in Canada, maybe I might pick up another Mosquitor, not only because he's one of my all-time favorite Master Universe Origins figure, Master Universe characters as a whole, then I might maybe just decide to display him with the octopus head, even though it's not technically an octopus head. But still a nice-looking figure. Mosquitor is one of my all-time favorites Masters figures. I might have even had the original one growing up. It's nice to see that Mattel is re-releasing him, keeping with the gimmick that the original vintage toy had that made him so popular in the first place. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for the idea of a figure coming with alternate head sculpts. That was one of the things that was really good about the Battle Armor He-Man and Battle Armor Skeletor was that came with alternate head sculpts. Even Buzzsaw Hordak, they've all benefited from alternate head sculpts that I ended up using for other figures. So why not have Mosquitor doing the same thing? It's just more so the fact that I don't think I'm ever going to display the figure with that unmasked head. I mean, I guess it's nice the fact that they included it, but I don't really think that there's a need for it in all honesty. I think, personally, that they decided to give him that energy force thing that goes on the end of his needle nose, and then they decide, okay, well, why don't we just release him as a deluxe figure and we'll give them an alternate head sculpt? Because I really think that this guy could have been packaged as a basic figure, still with the life force and still with his gun, and just leave the alternate head sculpt out completely. I think a lot of it is still my soured opinion when it came to Faker. Faker really needed to be released as a deluxe figure because if he, after all, is going to be a He-Man imposter, why didn't they include the Origins head sculpt along with Faker and release him as a deluxe figure? I think maybe that's where it is. I'm not soured necessarily that Mosquitor was released as a deluxe figure. I'm more soured by the idea that it's a reminder that Faker, all this time, should have been released as a deluxe figure. Gotta stop harboring resentment for older reviews that I've done. Mosquitor, though, even though I'm not going to display him with the octopus head sculpt, I'm going to likely display him exactly the way you're seeing right now. I love this figure. The fact that he does have that internal blood chamber like the original vintage toy. I mean, short of the fact he does have the additional articulation, you would look at this and think that this is the original vintage toy. And that's one thing consistently that Mattel is doing so well when the Masters of the Universe Origins figures is they're releasing figures the way they looked in the 80s with brand new articulation. Faker needed to have a deluxe release. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe they may release a battle armor Faker and then rectify things by including the alternate head sculpt. But yeah, if you're going to release Faker, why am I still harboring on this? Release Faker. He should have been released as a deluxe version. That's all I'm going to say. What do you guys think of Mosquitor? What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. He is hitting most stores, I think, in the US now. Canada's, of course, going to have to sit several months before we even start seeing these guys popping up. I also found this guy online, and I ordered him online, so he's a fairly new figure, but he's not difficult to find if you want to go sourcing him out. He's definitely a great-looking figure if you want to pick him up, and if you're a big fan of the Masters of the Universe Origins figure line. Taking a deep breath. If you guys are new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and yeah, make sure you're coming back, because a little birdie has told me that there are going to be brand new Masters of the Universe Origins reviews. A birdie did tell you that? He did. Actually, he speaks fluently in 7 different languages. He did tell me that there are going to be new Masters of the Universe Origins figures. So make sure, yes, you keep your peepers peeled to this channel. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.